Hi, welcome to Reddit Tea Time. I, 32 male, am one of 5 kids, the third boy and youngest child. My oldest brother is Joe, 38 male, and my second oldest brother Jet passed away a few years ago. Joe has spent the past 2 years being a widower and my second oldest. His wife, SIL, passed away due to an illness, and it was devastating for the family as she and Joe had been dating since they were teens and our families were pretty close. Years ago, when I was around 12, I had an obvious crush on SIL and even told Joe that I was gonna steal her away one day. But no one ever really paid it any mind because I was a kid. I carried a torch for SIL for like a year, and then I started crushing on someone else. It used to be a joke in the family because of how ridiculous it was, and I can honestly say that I never thought about SIL in that way ever again. Fast forward to SIL's final days, after the doctors have told her and Joe that there was nothing else science could do for her, and SIL had a come-to-Jesus moment and confessed to cheating on Joe around the time she got pregnant with my nephew Junior, 5 male. This confession was made privately, so a lot of people didn't hear what was actually said, but my guess is that in the moment, Joe said he forgave her or it didn't matter, and then she passed. Fast forward a few weeks after the funeral, and I start to notice Joe being cold and passive-aggressive towards me and only me. I had no idea why, and when I would try to ask him about it, he would either brush it off or just shut down. My girlfriend Ashley, 29 female, said that it could just be grief talking and to just give Joe some space, so I did. Then at a family barbecue at my parents' house, Joe blew up at me and told everyone what SIL had confessed. Everyone was shocked and upset by the news because Joe and SIL had been together since they were teens and our families were good friends with each other. Joe also said that SIL admitted that it was with his brother and accused me. I was shocked by the news and denied it. Joe didn't believe me, citing the crush I used to have on SIL as evidence. I was completely offended and tried to point out the ridiculousness of the idea before walking out. The next day, I got a call from my sister Jane, 36 female, who said that she was scheduling a paternity test for me and Junior so we could get this resolved. Again, I was offended and refused to do the test because 1, I didn't like what this implied, and 2, even if the test proved that I wasn't the father, it didn't mean that Joe wouldn't stop suspecting me. Joe tested himself, and after he was proven not to be the father, things started getting worse. Joe started telling extended family, and I was being pressured to do the test, and people started thinking less of me because if you've got nothing to hide, this shouldn't matter. After Joe started harassing Ashley and wrecked my car, I caved and did the test. Surprise, surprise, I'm not the dad, and just like I suspected, Joe still wasn't convinced that I never touched SIL and wanted to take another test. My mom found some hair in an old hat of Jet's and used that to prove he was the dad instead of me. Since then, people have been coming to apologize, and when Joe tried to reach out to me, I told him to go F himself and that he was just as dead to me as Jet. My family is trying to get me to forgive Joe given the circumstances, but I think I've done enough by eating the cost of repairs instead of pressing charges in order to get insurance to pay. How can I get my family to respect my choice? Now for some comments. This reminds me of Legends of the Fall. One woman and like 5 brothers. It was like she was the only woman in town. Joe has a right to be upset, but he took it out on the wrong person. Grief and anger makes us do irrational things, but it's up to you when or if you want to forgive him and on what terms. Best thing he and your family could do is give you space and let time heal wounds as best it can. All of them picking at it constantly is going to stop it from healing and will only make it worse. If they can't respect this basic request, then their priorities aren't you. You don't have to forgive anyone if you don't want to. Tell your family point blank to respect your decision or F off. If you, Jet, and Joe are biological full siblings, and Junior is the biological child of one of you, wouldn't a DNA test show some percentage of matching DNA? Obviously not the 99.99%, but also not 0, like 25 to 50% match? Not a scientist, just a geeky data specialist who watches too much true crime. F your brother. His wife's infidelity and his grief are not your responsibility. You did absolutely nothing wrong in this situation, and it's not your burden to bear. He ruined the relationship. So on her deathbed, she confessed to an affair with a brother, but she didn't say which one? Did this happen very dramatically, like an episode of Grey's Anatomy? My love, I have to tell you, our son is not yours. I had an affair with your brother. And then she died before getting the name out? My boyfriend and I have been together almost 6 years. I never really asked him about his finances. However, a few weeks ago, he told me he was going to be penny crunching over the next few weeks because we had this big trip. Anyway, I went through his Venmo account. I know that it's wrong. 2 days after he told me that, I noticed that he dropped almost $8,000 on online casino games in the span of 2 weeks, after telling me about how he was going to save. His account is locked out and he owes money. We're supposed to get engaged this year, so I'm very concerned. How do I address him lying to me, especially since he told me on his own that he was going to save up? Now for some comments. Former gambling addict myself. Get out. I ended up going down the take loans route. If he's anything like I was, he'll create any story to get cash from you in hopes of getting that one big win to pay you back. As a gambling addict down $320,000 at age 30, run. It's only a matter of time until he starts taking out loans to fuel his addiction. You're worrying about the wrong thing. You're so worried that he lied about his finances. You should be worried that you're with a gambling addict. Your boyfriend didn't just lie about his finances. He's a gambling addict. That is a huge big deal. It means never having any joint accounts, never being able to believe him when he says he paid the bills, etc. Truthfully, I would end the relationship because he has not acknowledged that his gambling is a problem or sought treatment or anything. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. You're working 2 jobs, you have a sick baby and you can't afford to take him or her to the doctor. You're about to be evicted from your crappy apartment because your husband stole your rent money to gamble. Bailiffs keep calling and you find out your husband has stolen your identity to obtain credit cards and you've only found out since the bailiffs told you that you owe $40,000. Just leave now. Tell his parents he's been gambling and you're leaving. Don't even bother having a conversation with him. My boyfriend and I dated in the same city for 6 months until he got a job in a different state. We split up, but then he reached out a few months later and we got back together but decided to figure out the details during a visit. I went to go see him and was very excited. When I got there, however, I was surprised to see that he was acting pretty aloof with me. He told me how happy he was in his new life, how he couldn't imagine living anywhere else, and didn't understand why people didn't live in his new town. He also criticized me for calling his new town by an old nickname, pointed out someone he had made out with during our break and said she was needy, and joked about how many people he could hypothetically get with in his new town. It all made me feel like an outsider or awkward interloper who didn't belong. I told him I was happy for him, but also that his over-the-top happiness made me wonder whether he was trying to send me a message, either that he was over me or he wanted me to move out or something. He shut down and got really upset. He said that he was just acting normal and that if there was any weirdness, then it must be something about me that was causing that. He got upset that I would criticize him for his happiness and project my own insecurities of our relationship onto him unfairly. I told him that I guessed I misread things. We haven't talked about it again except when he told me he talked to his friends and told me they said he was not overly happy, and so again I must be the one unfairly projecting my feelings. What do I do? Leave? Talk about it again? Now for some comments. Aside from him obviously shutting down your feelings, I talked to my friends about it and they agree that your overreacting bit is a manipulation tactic. He may not even realize it himself, but he has checked out of this relationship with you. He's gone through a growth or change period and doesn't want to backtrack. Emotionally mature adults recognize that you can grow with a person, but it's pretty clear he views you as someone from his past, not his present. That's if you take what he says at face value. If you don't, then he's being insecure and childishly trying to make you jealous of his new life. I wouldn't waste any more time on him. He can't even communicate in a mature or level way at 32 and doesn't care enough to take your feelings seriously. I highly doubt he'll get any better. Be done with it. He's already confided in his new friends about your disagreement, getting them to think that he's not being a jerk. Some guys don't want to be the bad guy, so they make you break up with them. Do it and don't ever look back. Best wishes for you. He has moved on and checked out with you. He could have been man enough to say so. His feelings changed on you and he should have called you and told you not to come. Instead, you picked it up on it and asked him and he turns it around on you and blames you. He's immature AF and then tells his friends, move on with your life.
What do you think? Please let me know in the comments below.
If you liked this story and you've made it this far, please consider subscribing. I really appreciate you spending your valuable time with me. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next Reddit story. In the meantime, please take care of yourself. Bye for now.